Hello everyone and welcome back. As I promised in my introductory video, I was going to set up a game of one of the three titles, be it Atlantic Storm, Pacific Typhoon or Med Sirocco, just to show you how the game plays and the dynamics and what to expect if you get into this very unusual gem of a filler with pretensions to being a war game of sorts. So I have set up a hypothetical three-player game of Pacific Typhoon. It is much more fun when you've got other human opponents, but unfortunately I don't have those today and I didn't really want to keep you waiting for too long. So three players. I'm going to play a hypothetical player one, and there are two others off camera. Just to give you a sense of what it's like to be a player in this game. You have no idea what your opponents have got. There may be some nasty surprises in their hands. You may have some nasty surprises you can spring on them. But anyway, the cards here are my starting hand. I have two US and four Japanese cards. They range in type. I have the aircraft carrier Zuikaku, the cruiser Maya, an ocean patrol reconnaissance aircraft, which is a bonus card. I can attach it to another unit. I have the aircraft carrier Intrepid on the US side, a P-51 Mustang, and the Japanese elite 343rd Kokutai fighter squadron. So, assuming that I'm the round leader this turn, the first thing that happens is I draw two of these battle cards from the deck. I then turn them over, see what my choices are. So I can choose to either play the Battle of Lingayen Gulf or the Battle of Kolombangara. Now I'm tempted initially to go for Lingayen Gulf because that is worth 6 victory points. However, that little cross there tells me that some unit cards are fated to fight very well at this battle. Looking at my cards and the words at the bottom left-hand corner, none of them say Lingayen Gulf. So it might be a bit risky for me to play that one. Also, because the battle takes place in 1945, virtually every card in the game can participate, so that increases my level of risk even further. So I'm not going to play that one. I'm going to start off cautious and fight the naval battle of Kolombangara. It takes place in 1943, so really my only cards that can participate are the cruiser Maya and the reconnaissance aircraft. Now the reason for that is Maya is in service from 1942 onwards, the reconnaissance aircraft from 1941 onwards. All my other cards, well, those three cards are late war. Zuikaku is in service from 1941. But as you can see from the blue background, excuse me, as you can see from the blue background, she can only participate in day actions. The Kolombangara battle card has a black background, which means this is a night action. So, the Maya and the reconnaissance plane have tan twilight backgrounds, so I can choose whether I want them to participate in a day or a night action. So in this turn, I'm going to fight Kolombangara. It's worth half a resource point and 2 victory points. I'm going to commit the cruiser Maya, and I'm going to declare it's a surface action. That is Maya's strongest suit. The half moon symbol there means I get a +1 bonus to my strength if I fight in a night action. So for the purposes of the night action, the Maya's strength is already 3. Adding the reconnaissance aircraft makes it 4. So I've turned Maya into a fairly powerful surface unit. Now I'm keeping the other two hands off camera so that you can't see what nasty surprises might be heading my way. But looking at my hypothetical opponent number one, let's call him Will or something like that. His options are not brilliant, but they're not totally hopeless either. He decides, because his hand is slightly unsatisfactory, he's going to play the Shangri-La card, which allows him to discard this card and any others from his hand and draw some fresh ones to see if he gets anything better. He can now take his turn. He has not done too badly, still a bit unsatisfactory, but not bad. He decides he's going to play the battleship West Virginia. Now, West Virginia can participate in night actions, but that little sun symbol there would mean a +1 in a daylight action. As it is, her combat strength is only 5. So, player 1's play of Maya is strength 4. West Virginia is 5, so the Allies are ahead. Everything is up to player 3 now, because he's the player who could either swing it back to the Japanese or guarantee an American victory. Now, looking at his cards, he doesn't have a great many options either, but he has no options that can usefully support the United States. So what he opts to do is play a very weak Japanese card, but nonetheless one that helps out. So that brings the Japanese total to 6 against the American total of 5 for a Japanese win. Now, the beauty of this for the player who plays the weak Japanese card is, although I have won the round, I am obliged to divvy up the victory point cards fairly between all the players who played Japanese. So, as the round leader who contributed the strongest force, I look at the cards in front of me. West Virginia's worth an awful lot more points than the Battle of Kolombangara, so I claim the West Virginia for myself, but I have to give the Kolombangara card to player 3 because he helped me out with that submarine. So he gets something for his efforts, even though it's not as much as I receive. And that is a round of play. So following that, every player refreshes their hands. I get, ooh, hello, gorgeous. Yes, please. Yeah, you're all right. And likewise, my 2 opponents will have fresh cards to add to their hands too. Now it will next be up to player 2. So I've had my turn being round leader. So it's going to be up to the other fellow to choose one of the upcoming combat cards. And we'll see what we get. Okay. After some deliberation, player 2 decides we are going to play the night action of Ormok Bay. So it takes place in 1944, is worth half a resource point, and is worth only 1 point. Fairly small action. I suspect, like me, there's some cautious play going on here. And as he is the round leader, he goes first. And he is going to open the ball by declaring a subsurface action. He doesn't have to specify that it's night because the card basically insists that it's a night action. So submarine I-168 is going to go out on patrol and initiate a sub-action. Player 3, who goes next in the round order, is going to take something of a risk. He doesn't have very good cards, but he is going to play his incredibly cheap Ha-class submarine, which is on its own is only worth a single combat point. He's also going to take a bit of a huge risk and try and get rid of player 2. with the severe weather card. Now, what this does is it allows him, if he rolls the correct amount on a dice, to either remove player two's play or to prevent me from playing. He decides he's going to remove player two. He makes his roll, and the Typhoon does not affect player two. So now it's my turn. Now, looking at my hand, I have a number of cards which can participate in a 90... Well, actually, no, I really only have two cards that can fight a night action. Neither of them is worth anything in a subsurface action. And to be honest, even if they were, there was no way I'm going to waste the Yamato or even the Chikuma, come to think of it, on a night action that's so cheap. You're not going to use a 6 victory point battleship with combat ratings like that on a tiny little inconsequential battle like that. So all I'm going to do is declare that I am discarding a card. I think I will chuck out... At the risk of shooting myself in the foot on a future turn, I will discard the Mustangs. They're a very powerful air unit, but they can only be played in 1945 battles, so my chances of using them are few and far between, so I'll just discard that. But I still have the Typhoon card, so I could ruin someone's day. Now, out of player 2 and player 3 is ahead in points because I had to give him the Kolombangara card. So I'm going to attempt to hoist him on his own petard by using the Typhoon card on him. So I roll my dice, I get a 6. This rather wimpy Typhoon has failed to affect anybody, so it goes out of play. So looking at the two contenders, there is no allied force to defeat, so the Japanese have established supremacy in Ormok Bay. I-168 has 2 subsurface combat points. Ha-10 has only 1. So those two go off into the discard pile. And player 2, the original initiator of the battle, claims his prize. Once more, we all fill up our hands, which start off at 6 cards, and they're still at 6 cards at the moment. Ooh, I seem to be doing a good job collecting battleships this game. Won't say no. And now it comes to player 3. Player 3 is just having a ponder and has arrived at his decision. We are going to fight the Battle of the South China Sea, 10th December 1941. Only this time he's going to play it with a little bit of a wrinkle. Because much to the horror of the Japanese, the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise has shown up unexpectedly off the coast of Malaya. Don't ask me how, where, or why, but if I were the commander of the British force said, I would be extremely grateful. Because he's using a daylight card, he has to declare that that's going to be a daylight action, and he's going to declare an aerial action. So with that, the question mark means he rolls a dice and adds 1 to the total. It's now my turn to make a play. Now he's rather hobbled me by declaring an air action. I can't use Yamato, she hasn't commissioned yet. Yamashiro is deliberately set at 1944 onwards. Now, that's not strictly right in historical terms. The ship was in commission at the time, But because Japanese doctrine bound her to the home islands with the rest of the so-called Hashirajima fleet, she's far away and she can't intervene. I have got the cruiser Chikuma, but in an air action, her rating of 1 would mean she'd just be easy fodder for the American planes. I do, however, just to surprise the Americans, if you thought she was returning from Pearl Harbor, oh no. The aircraft carrier Zuikaku is available and is more than happy to cross swords with her American opposite number. We would both, if I was facing human opponents, now look pleadingly at player 2, because as you can see from our ratings, we are both evenly matched. It's 50-50 as to who's going to walk away from this one. And player 2 now gets to call the shots as to whose side he will throw himself on. And as he starts to look through his deck, we both hold our breaths. Till finally, partly through complete lack of choice, because there aren't that many 1941 cards, it seems that some additional wildcats turn up to support the Enterprise. Now, this does not necessarily mean I'm doomed. If the Enterprise rolls a 1 and I roll a 6, it will be a very happy day for the Imperial Navy, but of course we can't guarantee that. So let's see what happens. Ooh! Enterprise just rolled a 6. So there actually is no point me rolling. There is no way I can defeat such an exceptional display by the US Navy. So the result is a foregone conclusion and it's a complete walkover. So player 3, who played the mightiest American play by a long shot, those Wildcats were probably superfluous in the end, but every little helps, now gets to decide how to divide up the spoils. So naturally, he's going to keep the South China Sea card, because not only does that give him 5 victory points, there's a full resource there, which means that when he fills up his hand at the end of this turn, his hand size will have gone up to 7 cards from 6. Now, through capturing resources by winning battles, you can raise your hand to a maximum of 9 cards from the original 6. As a sop to the fellow who donated the Wildcats to this engagement, he's going to give them the honour of having taken out the carrier Zuikaku. I, of course, sit there muttering angrily and get nothing, because, all I can do is brood over my failure and wonder what I'm going to explain to my masters back in Tokyo when I'm called upon to account for the loss of one of Japan's 2 newest carriers. Oh God, no. And so with that, we refill our hands. Oh, I get some Americans to balance my hand out. Okay, not too bad. And my compatriots would do likewise. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that's given you a gist for how the game works. At the end, of course, we would all total up our victory points once the deck of battle cards had been exhausted. Now, you can play a fast game version where you draw 4 cards every turn and choose one of those. That gets you through the game very quickly if you pressed for time. But for demonstration purposes, I was just showing you the standard game where you draw 2 cards. Hope it's given you some idea of how much I like the uncertainty and the really fun moments of tension you get in this game. It is really an awesome game. I will do a wrap-up where I'll put my final thoughts as to what's good, what's bad. But for the moment, I hope that this short playthrough was of use even. And thank you very much for tuning in. Goodbye.